How many international students are in the country right now on valid student visas?
Total is 786 that have study permits and work permits.
786,000? If any, has the IRCC given the government regarding institutions who take advantage of the international student program?
What if I told you the numbers you hear about international students in Canada are not the same numbers being used inside Parliament? What if politicians say, it will take time, but Canadians are feeling the pressure right now at the grocery store, at work, and at home? Today, in the House of Commons, you'll hear officials talk about reductions, targets, fraud, and housing pressure. But here's the question no one is answering clearly. Who is paying the price while the government waits for results? If student numbers are going down, why does rent still feel impossible? If fraud is being stopped, why are communities still overstretched? And if this plan is working, why do Canadians feel like they're falling behind? Watch closely, because what they say and what you live may not match. In next, something you can't believe is happening between the MPs.
Can you share with us what advice you've given the government regarding the long-term strategy for managing the international student program?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of the advice, as I've mentioned, we've only just embarked on all of the changes within the last 18 months. I tried to cite the time frame in which a lot of the changes were introduced.
What does wait and see mean for Canadians? The government says changes need time, but Canadians are feeling the problems right now. When government officials say they've only been making changes for 18 months and need more time, it sounds reasonable on paper. But for Canadians watching this, the real question is simple. Who can afford to wait? People are not living in policy timelines. They are living paycheck to paycheck. Rent has already gone up. Groceries already cost more. Job competition is happening now. When the government talks about long-term strategy, Canadians are asking a short-term question. Who is protecting us today? Key points, listen properly. 1. Housing pressure in university. Cities continues. Rent demand did not wait. 18 months. Student housing overflow pushed more people into regular rental markets, making it harder for families and workers to find affordable homes. 2. Entry-level jobs feel the impact fastest. Students and Canadians apply for the same roles. When workers outnumber jobs, wages stay low and hours get cut.
And to ensure that we are making changes based on evidence, there is a certain period of time that is required in order to know whether or not we should continue on that path. But I will say this in terms of early results, that as of July 31st, and this is on our website, there were roughly 786 study permit holders in Canada, compared to 995,000 at the end of 2023, and that is a 21% reduction.
Well, okay.
Are student numbers really going down? The government says student numbers are dropping, but Canadians want to know if it actually helps them. Officials say there are now about 786,000 study permit holders, down from 995,000 at the end of 2023, a 21% reduction. On paper, that sounds like progress. But Canadians are asking a different question. Where is the relief? Rent is still high, food is still expensive, traffic and transit are still crowded. If the numbers are going down, why does daily life still feel so heavy? Key points, listen properly. 1. A reduction does not mean relief yet. Even with fewer students on paper, many communities are still dealing with years of backlog and overcrowding. 2. Housing markets react slowly. Rent prices don't fall overnight. Landlords adjust slowly, and families don't feel immediate change. 3. Canadians want real-life results. Numbers on a website don't pay rent. People care about what changes in their wallet and daily life.
Okay. This kind of leads me into my next question, if you don't mind. How many international students are in the country right now on valid student visas?
So that is as of July 31st, 2025. It's a combination, but it's about 499,000 with just study permits, and it's 200 and the total is 786 that have study permits and work permits.
786,000?
How many students are actually in Canada? This part is about the real number of students living in Canada right now. The official number given is about 786,000 people with study permits, with around 499,000 on active student status. That sounds clear, but for many Canadians, it raises more questions than answers. If hundreds of thousands of students are still here, how much pressure does that put on housing, jobs, and services? And are local communities actually prepared to support these numbers? Key points, listen properly. 1. High numbers still mean high pressure. Even with reductions, hundreds of thousands of people still need housing, food, and transport. 2. University, cities feel it most. Places with large schools see more rent pressure and busier services. 3. Part-time job markets are tight. Students and Canadians compete for the same entry-level work. 4. Canadians want transparency. People want clear, honest numbers, not confusion or mixed messages.
So how many international student visas were approved since last year, just into 2025?
The number of decisions taken so far this year is 174,000.
174,000? Okay, because a quick Google search said 437,000 for the year. Is that an inaccurate number?
I'm sorry, what number did you cite?
437,000.
Why are there so many different student numbers? Different numbers are being used, and Canadians are confused about what is real. The government says 174,000 student visa decisions were made in 2025, but a simple search shows a much bigger number, 437,000. That gap immediately raises questions. If Canadians can't even track one clear number, how can they trust the system? If than actual arrivals, what does that mean for future pressure on housing and jobs? Key points, listen properly. 1. Approvals and arrivals are not the same. Many visas are approved, but not everyone arrives. This creates confusion for the public. 2. High targets signal future pressure. Even if arrivals are lower today, high approval targets can mean more people later. 3. Canadians struggle to follow the data. When numbers change, depending on who is speaking, trust starts to drop.
That is actually the study permit issuance target, so the number of approvals. So there are several numbers, so you will see that there's a number for the number of new arrivals. There's also a number for the number of approvals, which actually leads to a certain number of arrivals.
What advice, if any, has the IRCC given the government regarding institutions who take advantage of the international student program?
Why are schools being held responsible? This part is about whether colleges and universities are being controlled or left unchecked. Officials say there is a difference between study permit approvals and actual arrivals, but that still leaves a big question. Who is watching the schools? When some institutions benefit from high enrollment, the risk is that volume matters more than quality. Canadians want to know if the government is actually stepping in, or if schools are still free to push numbers without thinking about housing, jobs, and community impact. Key points, listen properly. 1. Some schools profit from high numbers. More students mean more tuition money, even if local services are stressed. 2. Communities carry the burden. When schools grow fast, cities deal with housing and infrastructure pressure. 3. Oversight must match reality. Approval systems mean little without strong monitoring of institutions. 4. Canadians expect accountability. People want to know who is responsible when the system fails.
My colleague Aisha Zafar has been outlining some of the measures that we've put in place to strengthen the integrity and through the reporting system, working with our DLIs. I will cite as well that, or recite the 14,000 letters of acceptance that we have actually intercepted. So,
how is fraud being stopped? This part is about how the government intercepts fake applications and letters. Officials say they intercepted about 14,000 fraudulent letters of acceptance before they even reached Canada. This sounds impressive, but Canadians are asking, how does this affect our daily life? When fraud is controlled, it helps protect jobs, housing, and services for legitimate students and locals. But the process must be transparent, so people know the system is working and communities are not overloaded by illegal arrivals. Key points, listen properly. 1. Intercepted letters prevent illegal arrivals. Stopping fraud before it hits Canada reduces pressure on housing and jobs. 2. Protects real students. Legitimate students have better access to services and housing. 3. Community pressure is reduced. Fewer illegal or fraudulent arrivals mean less strain on local infrastructure. 4. Transparency is crucial. Canadians need to see that actions are taken and systems are trustworthy.
So these are ones that didn't even make it here because we were able to intercept them.
Okay, so there hasn't been an investigation confirming those 14,000, and if so, what action has been taken in your department or others in the government to bring accountability to the offenders?
What happens to fraudulent applications? This part shows what the government does after intercepting fraud. Officials say many fraudulent applications were stopped before arriving in Canada. However, questions remain. What action is taken against offenders? For Canadians, this is important because stopping fraud protects housing, jobs, and services. If offenders are held accountable, the system is stronger and communities face less pressure from illegal or fake arrivals. Key points, listen properly. 1. Stopped before arrival. Many fraud cases are identified and blocked before students come to Canada. 2. Accountability is key. Offenders need to face consequences to deter future fraud. 3. Community pressure is lower. Fewer illegal arrivals help reduce demand on housing and services. 4. Canadians need transparency. People want to know that fraud is actually addressed, not just reported.
For the question. So, yes, when we look at potentially 14,000 fraudulent letters of acceptance, we take the data and we look at the indicators in each of those applications. Is there something that's consistent in each of those applications that identifies for us that this is a large-scale fraud, or there is something that individuals are trying to circumvent the program, and we will issue reports or other types of packages for our officers so that they can look out for those in future applications.
How does the government spot fraud patterns? This part shows how officials identify problems in applications to stop fraud early. Officials look for common signs in applications to find large-scale fraud or people trying to circumvent the system. They send reports and alerts to officers, so future applications can be checked more carefully. For Canadians, this helps protect jobs, housing, and services. Managing fraud reduces pressure on communities and improves trust in the system. Key points, listen properly. 1. Common signs show problems. Patterns in applications help identify fraud quickly. 2. Officers are alerted. Reports guide officers to watch suspicious cases closely. 3. Communities benefit. Less fraud means more resources for legitimate students and Canadians. 4. System trust improve. Handling fraud properly makes Canadians confident the system is fair.
We've done that in other cohorts as well. Last year, we were able to determine that there was fraud happening in the visitor program. We did the activities that I just mentioned. We were able to increase the identification of fraud and misrepresentation in that court by 241% over the course of a couple of months. So that's the system that we look at. If we either get information from our partners, we get tips, we look at our own trends.
How effective is the government at finding fraud? This part shows how well the government can identify fraud and protect Canadians. Officials say they improved fraud detection by 241% in certain programs. They use information from partners, tips, and internal trends to spot problems early. For Canadians, this is important because it protects jobs, housing, and services. When fraud is identified fast, communities feel less pressure, and legitimate students have fair access. Key points, listen properly. 1. Improved detection. Officials increased fraud identification significantly in recent years. 2. Trends and tips help. Information from partners and internal data improves fraud spotting. 3. Communities feel less pressure. Fewer fraudulent arrivals help housing and services. 4. Legitimate students benefit. Real students have fairer access to education and resources.
And we look at those indicators and see how can that improve our processing and our ability to identify that fraud and abuse in the future. And
Do you agree that the number of international students let into the country impacts housing prices? You said that you thought in some communities you've seen that come down somewhat. What proof do you have that it's the result of the actions that you're taking is what's causing the housing prices or the housing market to slow down? Because there's a whole bunch of other factors that affect housing prices in the country. I wonder how you identify that as being directly related to the actions that you've taken.
Does the number of students affect housing prices? This part discusses how international student numbers can impact rent and housing markets. Officials discuss whether increases in student numbers affect housing prices. Some communities see pressure come down after measures, but many factors affect housing. For Canadians, this matters because rent is a major cost. When student numbers rise, housing is harder to find and costs go up. Clear data and accountability are needed to understand real impacts on communities. Key points: listen properly. 1. More students, more housing pressure. High student numbers in university. Cities increase rent and housing demand. 2. Other factors also matter. Costs can be affected by market trends, supply shortages, and local policies. 3. Canadians feel the impact. High rent and housing scarcity directly affect families and workers. 4. Measures can help, but slowly. Reducing numbers or controlling arrivals takes time to show results in housing markets.
So it wasn't us that put that forward. I cited a study by CMHC that looked at some municipalities that are with universities, and what they had cited was that since we have put in some of the measures to control volumes and some of the other measures, that there has been a decrease on pressures in the housing market.
What does this mean for Canadians? Let's wrap up what we learned today and why it matters for you. From international student numbers to housing pressure, fraud detection, and job market impacts, this hearing shows that government actions affect daily life. Canadians feel pressure on rent, food, and jobs, and want transparency and accountability. If you want to stay informed about Canada's policies and how they impact your life, keep watching and follow the updates closely. Key points: listen properly. 1. Housing and rent pressure. Increased student numbers and fraud affect availability and costs. 2. Jobs and competition. Entry-level and part-time jobs are impacted by high arrivals. 3. System integrity matters. Stopping fraud and holding institutions accountable helps communities. 4. Canadians need clear information. Accurate numbers and open reporting build trust and relief. If you found this video helpful, informative, or eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more inside looks at Canada and House of Commons debates. Don't miss the next video. Stay informed, stay aware, and stay engaged.